Conspiracy theories are most often a smokescreen to divert us from the true evil.
My dad was right. This family's money is dirty.
Imagination is far more fascinating than reality.
Welcome to Working for Uncle Henry, the podcast. I'm the author and your host, Angela Mullins. Aunt Edith's New Year's Eve party continues in Chapter 8. The female singer with the band crooned, "Birds do it, bees do it, even educated fleas do it. Let's do it, let's fall in love." Henry swirled Edith over the dance floor so uncharacteristically that most everyone stopped to watch. It was the same every year. The hosts would show off their dance skills for one dance, then part company until time for the midnight kiss. Mrs. Carpenter still held Parker captive on the dance floor, long suffering of having her feet bumped and stepped on.
"You are a lovely young man, but your dancing could use some serious work."
"I am a little rusty. Maybe we should take a break."
"Oh, nonsense. Practice makes perfect."
She whirled him around with a jolly, verging on intoxicated chuckle.
"And I'm a wonderful teacher."
The spectacle caught Jennifer's eye as she entered the room. She grinned and winked at Parker. He scowled back. "Why, Mrs. Carpenter, I do believe you are monopolizing my cousin. Do you mind if I cut in?" Before the older woman could verbalize her protest, Jennifer pried Parker away. "Thank you," Parker gasped once they maneuvered away from his captor. "I thought you might need rescuing. Having fun?" Parker groaned. "This is not exactly my thing." Jennifer smiled. "Well, let's see if we can make you a little more at ease." She moved in closer and shifted her right hand from his shoulder to the back of his neck. That didn't necessarily make him more comfortable, but he was more focused on keeping his fingers below the deep V of the back of her dress and away from skin, but not too far below. "There are some interesting guests here," Parker mused. Yes, always. You never know who is going to be invited to this annual soiree." "So it's not the same basic group of friends each year?" "Oh, no. Well, there are a few local regulars, the police chief, Edith's pet project, Clay Harvey, the painter, her best friend, Anna Ridley, the mystery writer, and, of course, Mrs. Carpenter." Parker groaned. "Most of these other people are like a collection of who Henry has dealt with throughout the year or who he expects to have dealings with next year." Her fingers drifted into his slightly longer, choppier version of an Ivy League cut. "You're not a bad dancer, considering." "Ha! Mrs. Carpenter just told me the opposite." "Well, maybe I'm a better partner," she whispered into his ear. She smelled like vanilla and raspberries, and he couldn't help but breathe it in. "I always enjoyed Edith's attempts to teach all the kids to properly dance while we were together for the holidays. Yeah, Dad got fired up, but I managed to get in a little practice at college." Jennifer glanced over Parker's shoulder and smiled. Seconds later, a hand grasped that same shoulder.
"I believe Miss Vincini would like to change partners,"
that guitar declared arrogantly and a bit drunkenly. Jennifer transitioned her embrace from Parker to Qatar without a word or even a glance to her cousin. Parker watched Qatar whisk her away and hold on tightly should anyone else attempt his tactic. Parker was just starting to feel comfortable and enjoy the party, but he didn't want to watch the two of them dance, and he certainly didn't want Mrs. Carpenter to snag him again, so he slipped out in search of more food.
"You are such an inspiring dancer," Qatar said. "I expect you do many things well," he hinted.
Jennifer smiled subtly. "I make an absolutely marvelous martini. Would you like to try one?"
"Somewhere private?"
She smiled, slid her hand down to his, and led him around the outer hallway to the lounge. Two gentlemen sat at the bar with their drinks immersed in deep political talks.
"Are you fellow should find yourself somewhere else to solve the world's problems. We don't need an audience, Qatar said with a wave of his hand and a wink to Jennifer. She laughed and began mixing them drinks. The two men took their leave. Shortly before midnight, Edith routinely joined the band by playing along on the grand piano, leading up to the climax of Auld Lang Syne. She swayed and smiled joyfully through an Ella Fitzgerald classic, her silver coif, keeping time with the beat. The guests applauded her performance. Then she began to bang out the opening riff of Prince's 1999. The band leader brought in the other musicians.
I was dreaming when I wrote this, so sue me if I go too fast.
She sang in an almost operatic voice. The guests loved it, while Jennifer's presence was the evening's main attraction for many of them. Edith was the life of the party and reason they referred to it as her New Year's Eve party, even though the majority of the guests were Henry's colleagues and acquaintances. More than a few of the guests pulled out their cell phones to capture the performance.
1999, we could all die any day. 1999.
She wrapped up with a crescendo of the riff and ended with a perfectly measured trill. Jennifer and Qatar were making their own excitement, drinking, laughing, and flirting in the lounge. He never noticed the drops of a specially formulated GHB she slipped into his last drink. Qatar moved behind the bar, grabbed her and kissed her. She reciprocated. She now had him right where she wanted him. "Come on," she said with a smile. She took him by the hand and led him out of the lounge. "Don't forget your drink." Qatar retrieved his drink and followed her past the library and up the back stairs. She led him through the narrow second-floor hallway, lit only by sparsely spaced wall sconces. When they reached the corner, Qatar pulled her back and kissed her with a sloppy, ravenous appetite. Jennifer playfully bit his bottom lip. "Patience," she said, and continued to pull him through the narrow passageway. Most of the partiers moved to the foyer as the clock approached midnight. A net suspended 3 stories above released black, silver, and white balloons and confetti, while many New Year's Eve kisses were exchanged. Parker caught a glimpse across the foyer of Mrs. Carpenter, who had also just spotted him. He ducked up the east wing staircase toward his room. From the perpendicular hall headed his way came the sounds of giggling and mumbling. Jennifer came into view. "All partied out, Parker?" she called. "Yeah," he mumbled. Qatar sported him an exaggerated wink, and he and Jennifer disappeared toward her bedroom. Qatar wasted no time. He grasped the zipper of Jennifer's dress and gave it a yank. She smiled at how worked up he was. The satisfaction of getting men in this condition never grew old, or at least not yet. "Why don't you get undressed and finish your drink? I'll be right back." She finished unzipping her dress and let the red velvet fabric fall to the floor like the unveiling of a masterpiece. Qatar licked his lips and anxiously watched her disappear into the bathroom, then did as he was told. Jennifer gazed into the mirror and checked her face, her teeth, her hair, her body. She checked the time on her cell phone. She listened at the door. Qatar was quiet. She opened the door and saw his drugged, unconscious body on her bed. The drink had done its job. She searched through his coat and his pants pockets, opened his wallet and photographed its contents, a driver's license and 4 credit cards. His coat pockets contained a few business cards from some of the party guests. She photographed them. The inside breast pocket contained the piece de resistance, his cell phone. She removed the special phone Henry had given her from a drawer in her bedside table, placed the phones back to back until the cloning process completed. Afterwards, she returned everything to its proper place, climbed into bed beside Qatar, and went to sleep. Parker fell across his bed, still half-dressed, and stared through the darkness toward the wood-carved ceiling, trying not to think about what might be going on in the room next door. As far as he knew, Jennifer had never met Qatar before. Did she always jump into bed with men so easily? So, what happens when Dat Qatar wakes up? Well, Find out next time. I have often imagined the scene with Edith singing 1999, and it makes me laugh every time. I hope you found my portrayal here enjoyable. If so, please take a minute to leave a short review. It helps out a lot, and thanks so much for listening.